out, how way, ay, 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 ay. How way out, ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio. And we are also streaming with Real Liberty Media, and hopefully we'll get people's internet radio in here too shortly. We're doing this all from an iPhone in Roanoke, Virginia, at Defend the Sacred. My laptop is acting up on me, so Majikia, I can't really get back to you on your messages because I'm using the phone, just so you know, FYI. But thank you for all you do, and thank you for that beautiful promo that you did. It's pretty awesome. So what we're doing here today is we are organizing, getting together, and we are celebrating life and water and land and our ability to protect it. And we're gonna keep this place as beautiful as it is now, and we will not let them lay these pipelines down. I have with me Mara, and she is from Protect Floyd, which is one of the counties in Virginia that is working really hard to keep these pipelines out of our beautiful land. So welcome to the bridge, Mara.
Thank you. Thank you. And although we do intend to protect Floyd, the name of our 3-year-old organization is Preserve Floyd.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Protect, preserve, defend.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we intend to do. Thank you for having me on the show.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with this whole pipeline fighting and land defending and water protection?
So it was July 9th of 2014, and my friend Bill Kaverick posted on our local Floyd Facebook group, "Hey Floyd, I think we've got a pipeline fight on our hands." And I come from a long line of social justice activists and community organizers, my father, my grandfather, my mother, and I knew from that moment on that this pipeline was not going to get built, and helped to coordinate the early efforts in Floyd, and it was really miraculous. We rose up by the hundreds, and we didn't reinvent the wheel. We had fought the Greenbrier pipeline that Dominion was trying to put through in the early 2000s, and we've fought many projects over the years to keep Floyd, which is at the top of the high plateau, a very small rural county, fought to keep it clean and keep it preserved. And so we organized very swiftly, and a lot of counties followed in suit when they realized they were threatened as well. So we're surrounded by Preserve Franklin, Preserve Bent Mountain, Preserve Roanoke, Preserve Montgomery. It's really been a beautiful movement, and they moved the pipeline out of Floyd in about 3 months. They didn't want to deal with us, but we have gone on to support our neighbors and to continue with this fight because we agreed about 24 hours before we found out that it was moving, during a strategy session, our first strategy session with the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, of which Preserve Floyd is a chapter, that we intended to stop the pipelines. And we spent a great deal of time talking about that S because we are fighting the Mountain Valley Pipeline in this region. But some of our early actions were based on actions of Friends of Nelson, who were fighting the ACP. And that got started a little before our fight. So our first resolution we proposed to our Board of Supervisors was based on theirs. We didn't reinvent the wheel. And we know the effects of fracking. We know what these 42-inch fracked gas pipelines would do. So we're very committed to that pipeline solidarity as well as protecting and preserving our home ground.
Well, so the ACP is the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. The MVP is the Mountain Valley Pipeline.
They make them sound pretty, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. They do. And these are two different companies?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The Mountain Valley Pipeline, the primary shareholder is EQT, which is also a fracking company. The longest pipeline they've ever built was about 30 miles. So, and they're an LLC. They're a private corporation, which many of us don't really understand how exactly a private corporation can get away with eminent domain. The ACP is Dominion and Duke are the primary shareholders, and it goes through, or is proposed to go through, because it's not going to go through, 3 states, West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina. The Mountain Valley Pipeline starts, the proposed route starts in West Virginia and would end right at the North Carolina border in Virginia at the Transco station in Pennsylvania County.
Okay. So one of the things that you've expressed to me that's really important about this movement is that moving a pipeline is really not good enough. That's not, we're not going to settle for moving it.
No, that's just wrong.
So it's not about not in my backyard, it's about not in anyone's backyard.
Not in anybody's backyard, absolutely, and it's a very big backyard. I think that sometimes it takes a shock to the system. It takes feeling threatened on your home ground to pay attention to what's going on in the larger sphere. But once you know, you can't not know. And those of us who are committed to this, I feel, are committed to addressing climate chaos, making sure that we pursue environmental justice. And there is no justice in saying, get it off my land and onto somebody else's. I mean, we're neighbors here.
Right.
And we've got to treat each other as such. So we stand in solidarity. We don't want these pipelines laid anywhere. They're not doing any of these communities any good. This gas is raw fracked gas that is devastating the fracking fields of West Virginia and Pennsylvania and intended for export. So it's to profit, it's for the companies to profit off of, and it's just going to devastate these communities and risk our health and safety, and it's really just wrong for them to go anywhere.
And we understand as well that this idea that it's for America's energy independence is really made up, because all of these pipelines are going for export. So we are expected to take all that environmental risk and all that destruction and get nothing from it. We don't even get the energy from it. All we get is the destruction, and they get the money. This handful of people in private companies make all the money, and we pay the price.
The psychopaths in charge, you mean?
Yeah, the psychopaths in charge, exactly.
Yeah, I think that they try to pay just enough lip service to local distribution to get away with it. Like Roanoke Gas is I think 3% shareholder in the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And so therefore they're trying to prove that it is for the, quote, public good. What a lot of people don't realize about these pipelines is that they are transmission pipelines. They are for transport. So what they are transporting is raw fracked gas, which can't be tapped without a great deal of processing. So if any community did decide they wanted this gas, it would be very, very expensive, and the companies aren't going to pay for it. So they try to say, oh, we want to supply gas, but this is raw fracked gas they're trying to transport, and trying to build the processing facilities would definitely take more resources than many, if any, of these communities have, except perhaps this one, because in Roanoke, it's really the only major metropolitan area in Southwest Virginia. So it's just their arguments fall so flat. And ultimately, I think that the push towards renewable energy and alternative energy, I mean, our storage capacity has increased exponentially over the last few years. That increases our ability to utilize things like solar in ways that we haven't been able to before. And it's growing and growing and growing. We need to be pursuing that. And even the companies know this. They know that's what we're moving towards. But fossil fuel is backed into a corner and its claws are out. So they're fighting dirty these days. But ultimately they're going down because of people like me and you.
Yes, exactly. It takes the grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we have to partner with the political establishment to do it, it's a risky thing to do. But if we can find somebody that's on our side and wants to fight these pipelines, then we'll partner with them. Otherwise, what are they going to do for us?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us who else is here today, and
let's see, who else is here today? We have so many amazing speakers and musicians. We have several different preserve groups, including Preserve Floyd, Preserve Roanoke, Preserve Bent Mountain, Preserve Giles, Preserve Montgomery. I believe we have someone here from Preserve Franklin. We have Friends of Buckingham here, and we have somebody from West Virginia, which is wonderful because it's a long way from West Virginia. We have Secan and Bold and a few other, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy is here. There's, it's really been wonderful to watch this evolve. I think that there's a very broad representation of both, the grassroots and some of the larger organizations, and it's good to see everybody working together because ultimately we're working towards the same goal and we all have different resources to share. But everybody's at the table. And one of the things that is the most inspiring to me about today is we have water from all over Virginia and some from West Virginia as well. And we're going to have a water blessing at 7 o'clock. And all of this water is going to be blessed and combined, and it's going to be used to plant sacred corn on landowners' ground along the path of the MVP and the ACP. And we're using sacred red Tutelo corn that has been cultivated in Floyd for the last 3 years. It's a heritage corn from a tribe that was originally in this region, but moved to Pennsylvania. And so the seeds came from Pennsylvania. And now we're using it to plant seeds of resistance after this event today, defending the sacred. This corn is going to travel up and down the lines to stand in the way. And we're continuing that honoring of the sacred and of that which sustains us, and that the land is sacred to us. And that, I think, is going to be one of the strongest defenses against this project. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm not a scientist. I know just enough to know that I can be accurate in what I say. I'm a poet and I'm an organizer, and I believe that there's power in numbers and that the people have more power than those who try to oppress us, make us believe. And so it's really inspiring to see people realizing the power that they have and that we can all work together with all our different approaches to stop this thing.
So we've got musicians, artists, poets gathered here.
Yeah.
I think I met
Dancers.
I met a lawyer as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. So lawyers are part of our team here on the ground, getting things done. And one of the things we're doing in the grassroots is kind of trying to learn how to be their assistant in the way and get some of that work done, and then let them carry it over the finish line for us.
Absolutely.
Since we can't afford to pay them.
I mean, I think I have worked with several really innovative attorneys with, environmental law, copyright law, all sorts of things. And something that really inspired me was seeing all of these activist lawyers turn up in droves at airports. when we had the whole issue with immigration. And, I watched, friends of mine in law school who were, up for 36 hours and like setting up tables. And I thought, okay, now we've got the lawyers on board and we've got the Park Service going rogue. And we've got, it's a very big movement. And my area is definitely within the environmental realm. I'm fighting these pipelines, I'm fighting coal ash, I'm fighting open burn at the arsenal. Like, I'm paying attention to the earth and defending the earth. But I'm glad to see all of these different avenues and areas coming together. It's really inspiring.
Oh, it's incredibly inspiring. For myself, I joined another, chapter of Blue Ridge Environmental Network when I got back from Standing Rock. Mm-hmm. And that was the message there was, thank you for your support. Go home and join the fight there. Don't let them lay down pipelines there either. Mm-hmm. And so, that's how we met, and that's how I'm here today. Mm-hmm. I think we have another person that's going to come.
Somebody is knocking at the door. Come in.
Oh, they might.
Let's see
what's knocking at the door.
Hey.
Oh, it's a little person. Come on in, little person. So I wanted to get a sense from you, since you've been in this local fight for a while, if you think that Standing Rock really has breathed a little bit of life into the movement.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was actually the vision of Will Adams, who is living in Montana right now, but is from the Roanoke area, and really had the vision of bringing Standing Rock to the Appalachian region. And that's where Defend the Sacred got started, was from his vision. And I've never seen anything quite like Standing Rock. And I was not on the ground. I was watching it from afar. And I was trying to choose the media sources, such as yourself, because it was very interesting to see the different spins that it was given by, the dominant paradigm in terms of media. But there was this coalescing of energies and tribes and intentions that I thought really shifted the dialogue. And I think that there have been things that have come about as a result of that, like the Lancaster stand, for example, which they are committed to standing their ground. Preserve Floyd's motto is, what we stand on is what we stand for. So will we be camping out in Floyd in the path? No, because we're not in the path at the moment, but we would sure go to Bent Mountain if we had to. And there are a lot of people who are willing to put their bodies on the line. And, fortunately, we are still dealing with something that is theoretical here. We're still dealing with a proposal. And the longer we can hold that off, the more we can delay that. And it is not certificated. There is nothing official about either the ACP or the MVP. So this is planning. It's not necessary yet to actually do that. But there are a lot of people who are willing. And I think that in some ways Standing Rock showed us that that could be done. It also showed us what the government is capable of when they don't like what you're doing and they want to get their way, like egomaniacal 5-year-olds with a God complex. It's not acceptable for things to shift in the way that they did. And we're looking at a similar scenario in Virginia, in so much as the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, back in April, said, oh, we're going to individually permit every stream that these pipelines would have to cross. Each and every body of water is going to have to get a permit. And we thought, great. This is wonderful, because that would, A, take forever, and B, each and every body of water would have to be examined and et cetera. But then all of a sudden, think about a week and a half ago, fairly recently, the DEQ was like, oh, we didn't actually mean that. We're just going to, go to the Army Corps of Engineers and just get a blanket permit for the whole thing.
So here we have the Army Corps of Engineers.
I know, right? And I mean, it wasn't even part of the dialogue until then. So there's been a lot of focus on that and just who are the decision makers? Who do we appeal to? We ask, we request, we demand, and then, we're not taking this lying down. And I think that there's a real shift in the political climate right now. All of a sudden, Dominion is toxic to politics, and that was not the case 6 months ago. So, the people's voices are being heard, and we're getting louder, and we're coming together, and we're not compromising, we're not backing down. And, more and more people are stepping up and taking a stand. So, including this amazing woman right here. Hi. This is my friend Whitney Whiting.
Whitney Whiting is the wonderful woman who's created the End of the Line podcast. Welcome to the bridge, Whitney.
Thanks for having me. This is live?
Yes, this is live.
Very
You are
cool.
live. Thank you, Mara. Please stick around.
I will stick around.
Okay.
Yes, I will be finding some other folks for you.
We don't get to be interviewed together?
Well, we can be interviewed together for a minute. I'm game.
Yeah, you can stick around, Mara.
We can recite poetry together.
Poetry.
There's a lot of poets here today, and I think myself being a poet, I think poets have that heart for nature, for life, for that which is sacred, and to be able to put that into to boil it down into something that really touches a person and helps them to understand just how sacred life is.
Or you can jump up on a chair and recite one to Macaulay. That's another thing poetry can do.
There's lots of ways to use it.
Indeed. Indeed.
So for those of you, tell us about your podcast, End of the Line. I was really impressed with it. I got a lot out of it. It was very educational, very polished, and I really, really liked it.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah, thanks so much. We started interviewing people in the path of both pipelines in February of this year. And we are trying to be very intentional about making it about both pipelines and not just the ACP or the MVP. We started interviewing in February, and then now just kind of found out that we're going to be getting the green light from one of our local stations to go on the air with it very soon. So we're really excited about that.
Excellent. Is that you only have one podcast so far, or are you?
We have one episode.
Okay.
Yeah, we've completed the pilot episode, which sort of takes a look at sort of just taking a look back at the beginning of the struggle for both pipelines when people found out, just explaining for people that this is already, in 2017, it's been a 3-year struggle already. And even I kind of sometimes forget how long it's been that people have been fighting this. With the intention of trying to let people know like what has already happened. Because after, I think Standing Rock and also Keystone XL has sort of pushed the issue of fossil fuels and pipelines and stolen land. It's kind of pushed it to that national consciousness. So now when people hear about the word pipeline, I think their ears perk up. But they may not have been paying attention for the last 3 years to what's been happening with these pipelines in Virginia. So, which is okay because we all have a lot going on in our lives and there's a lot to pay attention to. But, we're trying to let people know that there's still time to catch up on all that's already happened. And with a kind of long view to what is to come.
Wow, yeah, it really got me caught up, and I've been wanting to get caught up, and it just really put everything in a succinct way, and I knew, okay, this is what we're dealing with. So, moving forward in your podcast as you continue, what's your mission and your plan?
Well, the whole goal is really to reach a wider audience. And we talk about, we're sort of centering it around Virginia because that's where we are, but with the recognition that this is also happening in West Virginia, North Carolina, that there's also, we also have friends up in Maryland who are fighting the Cove Point export facility that they've been building for the last 3 or 4 years. And all of those things are connected. The two pipelines, we feel there's an obvious connection to an export terminal. There's at least the possibility that this natural gas could be exported overseas eventually. So we want to make sure that it's not just, that there's a whole network here of like resistance stories. And so then the goal being just to kind of get people up to speed and then eventually have it meet up in real time with like the decisions, not only the decisions at the federal level, but at the state level. And then of course at the grassroots level, there's all kinds of decisions people will have to make about how they're going to fight this and, the actions that they're going to take. So we want people who may not be directly affected by the pipelines to know that this is an ongoing struggle.
And they're still affected, whether they're directly affected or not.
Right.
And apologize to the audience for the background noise, but we are backstage here at the show, so it's kind of, think of it as mood, as mood enhancing sounds.
There's a lot going on. Earlier there was some singing and a circle of chanting and singing that was really beautiful earlier. That was nice.
It was really great.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the fact that we have a politician here that's going to speak at this event?
Mm-hmm.
Tom Perriello is here.
Yeah.
And just the idea of an anti-pipeline politician is new. And we're lucky to have him in Virginia.
It is new. It's unprecedented, just as these pipelines proposals are unprecedented. But yeah, I think because of that, it's really fitting because to me, it just shows that that this conversation is changing. And we've seen the conversation, at least around a company like Dominion. I think they've gotten a lot of negative press over the last few years. It's sort of been building, and I find that encouraging. I feel like that means the fact that this conversation is going that way. I think that means that the people are in a winning position right now. And as much as I know that sometimes the companies, the industry will put out their propaganda about how they power the economy, and I don't want to repeat their talking points, but sometimes I think it's easy for folks to feel defeated when you see the propaganda come out, but I like to remind people that means we're winning. That means they're having to spend more money on that propaganda where they didn't have to before, because nobody questioned Dominion prior to 2014. I don't think at all. Yeah. And I have had, conversations with people before, as someone who lives in Richmond, where Dominion is headquartered, and our local politics, sort of how I started paying attention to Dominion was because of the amount of influence they have over our local level politics in Richmond. And I think it would have been unheard of even 3 or 4 years ago to have this amount of just questioning whether or not they are a legitimate force. I don't know. They just have so much influence right now.
They do. Yeah, so I mean, I worry about the political system sort of taking Perriello down and not allowing him to really be a viable candidate. So I think it's important for Virginians to get out really to the polls on the 13th and make sure he's the Democratic. He's going to be a Democratic?
I think he is in the Democrat.
Yeah, he's in the Democratic side.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. I without endorsing any one candidate, I'm I'm anti-pipeline, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm mostly focused on. And I've had a lot of, experience with seeing the effects of people power in this state. And, without getting into details there, I know that we've seen where people can really have an influence on elections. And those things, obviously there's so much more that we can do other than just voting, I think. But it is important. I think it is important it's always going to be strategically, it's going to make the work a lot less hard. It's still going to be hard work, but it's going to make it, when you have politicians who are at least saying they're going to do certain things, it makes it easier for us to pay attention and hold all of them accountable.
Right. Yeah, so I guess you're not supposed to endorse anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. I try not to.
Yeah. And I for myself, I have a certain amount of distrust of the system, but I think that we do have power at the local level, and in fact, that's maybe our only power that we do have.
Yeah.
Is at the local level.
Yeah, and we have some. People who already are in office that at least have been pretty clear about like things like local ordinances against fracking, and there are some who want to say that the communities don't have the power to say no, but I think that's a great tool in the toolbox at the local level is the community veto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and looking at the ordinances that counties, and that's been sort of a big thing in Buckingham around the compressor station. The fact that Dominion is trying to put a huge. They've increased the size of it 3 or 4 times now in the last few years, but this huge compressor station that is slated for the Union Hill community in Buckingham that is zoned as an agricultural zone, and the Buckingham County Board of Supervisors granted a special use permit for the ACP to put their compressor station there, which kind of goes against the zoning laws, and there's a lot of nuance there. I know there's a court case that's trying to challenge that special use permit now. So it's not very sexy, but it's the legal talk sometimes can get boring. But I think those are also important strategies too.
And it's also important to get involved in these things, because then you start to realize that there is a way to win, but you also get to see those examples of basically corruption when you've got the truth on your side, you've got the law on your side, you have everything on your side, and they still side with the pipeline people or the fracking people.
Yeah.
And even morality, really. I would go as far as to say we have morality on our side, because it is immoral to destroy life for profit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
So, I think some people get involved and they're like, oh, wow, this really is a lot deeper than we first imagined it could be. But it can be boring. You can fall asleep in those meetings, and
But they're also very interesting because you get to see. Well, you just get to see that these are real people. These are people's lives, and that's what's been so interesting about. That's what I've been loving about doing the podcast, is going out to counties and getting real stories from people, and talking about the history of the area. And someone said recently that this was a woman who is actually affected by both pipelines because she has a family, her family's farm is in Buckingham, but she lives in near Roanoke, where the Mountain Valley pipeline is coming through. So she's kind of like, kind of fighting both of them with two hands. And but she said something about the fact that the monitoring for the safety and for the pipeline and compressor station is being done like in Bridgeport, West Virginia. And she said it's a lot easier to just say we can risk these communities, we can sacrifice these communities. If you haven't been there and talked to the people and realized that these are real people, there's real history here. This is, I just think about if it was my own family, if it was happening to them, what would I, how would that make me feel? What would I be willing to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, would you be willing to put your body on the line once all of the legal strategies failed because of corruption and fascism? Because we're in a fascist state now where the corporations and the government are one, and so they help each other out because they're really the same entity. I mean,
nowhere was that more clear when Trump appointed Rex Tillerson of Exxon as the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's a total. I think it's been like that for a while, but now it's pretty blatantly.
Yeah, there's no front to it. It's really blatant now, and there's no front to it, which is good. I mean, in a way, that's good. Because it was a lot harder to convince people under Obama that we were living under fascism because the liberal speak sounds good. Yeah. I mean, we won all those things. We weren't getting them. Yeah. But they sounded good, and we really wanted them all. So.
Are we ready to transition now?
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Yeah. If you have someone else that you need to get in here, then
come on in.
How about we have some poetry? I was thinking about rehearsing with you. I don't know if I should give everybody a sneak preview or not.
Well, come on in and close the door. Yeah. How about that?
A little taste of the music.
I just wanted to finish up with Whitney. What were we talking about, Whitney?
We started talking about fascism.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've got some lyrics in my back pocket. It's a rewrite of Woody Guthrie's song, "All You Fascists Bound to Lose."
Awesome. Good segue.
Well.
I've got a box of matches. Would I know?
You could burn the lyrics, or you could sing it, whatever you want. I actually brought them for you.
Wow.
Because, psychopaths, fascists.
Yes.
Oh, well, I just figured I'd pass them out since I had them in my back pocket, and you were talking about fascism.
That's right.
Right?
I don't know how the song goes, though.
Come on, all you fascists. You may be surprised. People in this world are getting organized. You bound to lose. You bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. Women are not objects for you to push around. We'll put on our pussy hats and kick you out of town. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. You came for the Muslims, then we got irate. We gathered up the lawyers and we stormed the airport gates. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. Skip that verse. When you piss off the scientists, you really dug your hole. They'll put you in a test tube and they'll prove you have no soul. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. We'll tolerate no racists. We'll sink the KKK. Speak truth to power every time these brutes get in our way. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. You cannot build your pipelines. We want our water clean. Parks and farmers go and row till you see what we mean. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. People of every nation, marching side by side, marching across their countries and through this great world wide. You're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. Woo!
All right.
Show them what a couple of hillbillies can do, in the words of the great Woody Guthrie.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good.
Fascism. And it's a cheerful song about fascism.
be cheerful. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So in and out. In and out.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it.
Yes, I'm keeping, I put that in my back pocket. So we have, are you staying in here, Connor? Or, because I'm trying to do a radio show, so. Yes, okay. So we have a new person that is joining the show, TJ.
Anderson, TJ Anderson.
TJ Anderson,
That's
welcome
right.
to the
Thank
bridge.
you so much.
We had the pleasure of drumming and singing together
Yes,
earlier,
it was fun.
which was pretty awesome. Yeah,
Bring in that good energy, good powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was wonderful. So what would you like to do here
What would I
on
like
the
to
air?
do? Well, I think the air kind of calls for an improvisational poem. You know, I've been thinking a lot about water, you know, what it means to all people. You know, water as a being, water as something to cleanse, but there's also in terms of what our species has done with exploiting our natural resources, particularly the water. And I was just thinking and watching the drummers and hearing people talk. And I began to think about my ancestors and the relationship with water. I'm talking about the transatlantic slave trade. I'm talking about the Mississippi River. So I started to think about Langston Hughes's poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. So I'm going to try to improvise a poem loosely based on Hughes's work. So to start off, I'll say an epigraph from Langston Hughes, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, and then I'll close with the final line of The Negro Speaks of Rivers. So, I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul, my soul, my soul, my soul has grown deep like the rivers, like Yemaya, like Yemaya, like Yemaya, rounded stone goddess of water, river, rain, and sand, calling me, calling me, calling me to earth, to cleansing, to bless this cleansing, to whoosh, 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 water, 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 the softness of a bay, 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 the softness of a baby's breath brings water, brings holiness, brings cleansing, brings pleasure, brings sanctity, brings cleansing, brings pleasure, brings sanctity, brings cleansing, brings crystal clarity. Water, water through us, around us, in us, between us, cleansing us, creating space to see, to experience, to live the holiness of breath, the holiness of Yemaya, Yemaya, Yemaya. Water, water, water. My soul, my soul, my soul. My soul has grown deep like the water.
Nice.
Thanks.
All right. Reminded me of that song, that song about Yemaya.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful tributes to Yemaya.
Mm-hmm. The ocean goddess of the
Yoruba.
the Yoruba people.
Yeah. And Santeria and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, TJ.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Yeah, so we have about 10 minutes before we go to a break.
May I offer a poem?
Yes.
In case you're not here when I perform it
I
later.
would love to hear it.
Somebody else want to, oh, the door's going to stay shut. It wouldn't stay shut before.
You put jeer
I know.
here.
I know, baby. Okay.
Is that
So
fair?
do you want to do your poem that you're going to do? Because
Yeah.
we have enough time for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I do.
I'll let you hold the phone while you do it, and then I'll try to talk to my husband on my son's phone
Ah,
while you do it. Thank you so much.
speaking.
Yeah, and if you want to come back.
My
quick
phone's
now.
about to die, so can you keep this?
This is a community effort. This is grassroots radio at its finest. The bridge
Oh.
with Kira.
TJ, right?
Yes, TJ.
Yeah, my husband wanted you to know. Well, my husband wanted to know your name.
Oh,
TJ
Anderson.
Anderson.
The artist.
There we go.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay,
All right.
so now
This
we're
is called Deep River.
going back to Mara, and she's going to do a pretty awesome poem that she's going to also perform here.
Yeah, I'm going to be performing this later, so you're getting a sneak preview out there in Radio Land. This is called Deep River. I grew up on the banks of the Deep River in North Carolina, and it's a little known fact that part of the reason my parents decided to move to Virginia is because they were trying to put a pipeline through the backfield of our property down in North Carolina. So that was among the reasons we went back to the land in the late 70s, early 1980s. So this is inspired by the first river I got to know very well, and my travels back and forth to Berea, Kentucky and Louisville, Kentucky, because I have family and friends in that region from way back. And the first time I recited this poem to Kira was in the parking lot of a Holiday Inn, which is my favorite place to recite poetry in parking lots. This is called Deep River. Over the gaps of Cumberland and beneath the hollow rock midway and along that last lengthy straight stretch before the interstate is left behind, my heart is a deep river rolling towards Kentucky and you. Swim through the sludge of the underworld. Hold your breath, traveler, until you can release it into clean air. Where is the clean air? Where is the clear, childish water? How do we name particulates driven by industry, corrupting each belly of each beast that roars within the current of this carrier, the veins of the mountain raised with blades until there are only the shackled wrists of drought holding the heart hostage until it rains? Even the rain, friend. Even the slipshod delivery of what should nourish. My heart is a deep river winding through West Virginia, dammed up and stuck in Tennessee. Show me what can heal. Show me the long, long crawl. I will show you a mountain carved into couplets, walking down the aisle with an energy company holding a shotgun to her belly. This wedding, a sham. No head, no feet. Oh, darling mountain, says AEP, says Dominion. Oh, let me count the ways, says Duke, says EQT. Oh, till death do us part, says Massey, says Alpha. We'll commit to the middle and everything else we can exploit. Obey, obey, and carried over the threshold of change, they rot like the carcasses they are in this rivered vision, thrust into the thick of it, rivered towards your actual arms. My heart is a wailing river, shrieking towards Kentucky and you. I will rejoice in tall gardens living through Louisville, the insistence of brilliance, universities filled with resistance. Here's a statistic, here's another, here's how we stop it, stop it, stop it! But I am still deep in the gap, friend, a drop in the Cumberland bucket with my mouth wide open to the poisonous sky, my heart the only witness I can name. I'll plow through permissions and missions, admitting my veins bleak with travel to any earth that will bury me. Take this. This is my blood. This is my blood from a river that still flows willingly, a mountain that needs no name, salve to a hungry young forest. Over the gaps of Cumberland, I carry the Blue Ridge to you. Our hearts, the source of rivers, headwaters to the region, spilling over, shifting shackles, witnessing bridges, even when all we can see are factories. Can we shift this incident to accident, this accident to action? Can this atrocity be empathy? Can we make this river bloom? We're the heart of this river, friend. A drop in the Cumberland bucket, halfway home and sobbing. Carry me the rest of the way. Help me climb into clean.
Awesome. Love it. Love it.
Prodigious.
You're talking about
So we're coming together here. We're offering the gifts that we've been given, and it's really a way to give back. We're using our creative gift, which is really our divinity,
Yes.
to power this movement and to bring people together and make these connections. And
everyone has a gift.
Yeah.
Everyone has something that they're called to do. I was on a pipeline panel recently where we were getting so caught up in the FERC and the DEQ and all of these agencies that nobody knows all the acronyms for. And I stood up in the middle of somebody talking. I don't remember whether it was a lawyer or a scientist or what. And I said, I have a question for you. And I picked like the quietest girl in the room. This was the panel at Robbins.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you love? She was like, I don't know. What do you mean? And I said, what do you love? What do you love? What are you passionate about? What are you good at? What do you love? She said, animals? And I said, okay, so Preserve Craig here, they have an endangered species, this mussel that is amazing that they have. So if you love animals, you could help your research on endangered species. You could help us find one to use as a mascot. There's all sorts of ways you can plug into what you love. And when we do what we love, it's more sustainable. We're more likely to stick with it. We're not going to say, oh, I don't have time, I'm too tired, it feels important. And I know that many of us, do this work because we love the earth and we want to do what we can to protect and preserve what we've been given. But when you're trying to find something for someone to do who wants to help and they feel like they're not an expert, it's like finding that place from your heart.
And you hit it hard. Yeah, the power is being powered from the heart as opposed to like everything cerebral, everything in the intellect. All of these things, mechanizations and all of these confusing things and signs and organizations and so forth. But the idea to touch into integral part of who you are, right? The heart. Just step into that space, into that rhythm. Because that's what drummers do. That's what musicians do. That's what that poem does.
we are we're going to take a quick break for some station bumpers, and we'll be right back for the second hour. Please join us and stick around for Defend the Sacred. All right, well, welcome back to the second hour of the Bridge. And we are live from Roanoke, from Defend the Sacred. I have another guest with me. His name is Lorne Stockman. Welcome to the Bridge.
Thank you.
And you're from Oil Change International. Tell us about that.
Oil Change International is a group based in DC. We do research, communications, and advocacy. We're one of the only groups focused on the fossil fuel industry exclusively. So we do a lot of research reports and advocacy. We call ourselves, we like to say we're data-driven and people-powered. But we focus on, the true cost of fossil fuels and enabling the transition to clean energy.
So are you a nonprofit or?
We are a nonprofit.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's your mission.
Group. Yeah.
So what got you interested in this work? And
that goes back a long way, but I've been working for environmental groups for over 20 years, and I kind of got involved in an oil industry campaign. But you can probably tell that I'm not from Virginia, so
right.
Back when I lived in London, I worked for Greenpeace in London, and I've kind of been focused on the big UK oil corporations, BP and Shell, for a number of years. When I moved here to work for Oil Change, I was very much focused on the Canadian tar sands issue, some of the dirtiest oil in the world that's coming out of Canada, and the pipelines that were being built to bring that oil into the United States and to the coasts and to export markets. So I was very involved in the Keystone XL campaign. But I was lucky enough to marry a woman from this part of Virginia, and so actually I don't live in DC, I live in Stanton, Virginia. And a few years ago, about 2.5 years ago, it turns out that Dominion is proposing the Atlantic Coast Pipeline just 5 or 6 miles from where we live in Stanton. So I got involved in supporting the movement against the ACP, and of course also against the Mountain Valley Pipe that's coming through this region.
But they want to come through.
That
That's
they
proposed.
propose to come through this. That's right. We're going to stop it.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback there from somebody. I'm not sure who. One of the 3 stations, but okay. So you're here at this event. When you come to events like this, what is your goal?
I think there's a number of goals. I mean, one is to reach out to people and, hopefully reach new audiences. Hopefully we've got people coming through Roanoke here that maybe don't know as much as they could do about the pipelines and why we need to stop them. I also think it's about coming together with all the different folks who are battling the pipeline. A lot of people are they're landowners or they're supporting landowners in their communities. They're spread out, and it's always great to be able to kind of come together and just be together and talk about these issues and support each other.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, since you are from the UK, post Standing Rock, the anti-fracking movement in the UK has really, really taken off.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, actually, that's been going on for a few years now. I'm not so closely involved in it because I'm over here and we have a lot of stuff going on over here. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, fracking started in Texas and has spread all over North America, and it's now spreading globally. In the UK, where it's much more densely populated, and some of the places that they're proposing to frack in southern England, these are really quite densely populated communities, and they've never dealt with the oil and gas industry in their midst before, and the movement there is very strong. They're not willing to accept that kind of abuse.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them. I've interviewed quite a few of the water protectors over there and people involved in that movement, and I certainly plan to interview more. Yeah. Because even though this is a local problem, it's a global problem too.
That's right.
So whatever we allow to happen here is not only going to affect us here, but it's going to affect us everywhere. And the thing that you bring up about these densely populated areas, that seems to be what's on the table now. For these companies is that, okay, we've made all we can off of these rural areas, these areas where there's few people living. Now these other areas are on their table. Well, too bad for them, because these densely populated areas have more people to resist and to kick them out.
That's right. And I think, the UK is actually, has made fantastic progress on renewable energy. We have offshore wind really growing fast at the moment, and solar power. And people just don't kind of buy the gap we need to do this in order to get the energy that we need for our communities. People just don't buy that. And this is increasingly what we're seeing, is that the industry is increasingly desperate to find new places to exploit, but is on shakier and shakier ground when it comes to justifying why we need to go to these extremes to extract these fossil fuels. Yeah.
So you also being from Greenpeace, that must have been amazing for you to see when Standing Rock happened, this this sort of Greenpeace style of nonviolent direct action married with indigenous spirituality. I mean, that was the first time in history that the world really saw something like that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly on that scale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I think we've seen that kind of, we saw actually, I think the Standing Rock movement also, took a lot of inspiration from some of what has been going on in Canada with the tar sands, where there are First Nation groups who have stopped pipelines in British Columbia. So yes, I think it's been building for a while, but we've never seen anything on that scale before. And yes, it was inspiring to see civil disobedience, nonviolent direct action used in that way.
Yeah.
And on that scale.
Do you think we'll see something on that scale again, given that the establishment usually responds in kind?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think there was a fairly a certain set of circumstances at Standing Rock which enabled that to kind of happen at that scale. But certainly, we've got Keystone XL now they're trying to push that through again. The presidential permit has now been issued, and that's now going to be fought on the ground in Nebraska. It comes down to the Nebraskan state permitting the route through Nebraska. We have tribes, and as well, in alliance with ranchers and farmers and others that are determined to stop that coming through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We also have obviously the pipeline fights here in Virginia, but also in Canada, they're still trying to push through pipelines through British Columbia, the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline, and we're going to see very strong opposition. That pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, looks to go. It terminates in Vancouver, which actually is the birthplace of the environmental movement in Canada, the birthplace of Greenpeace, and there is very strong opposition in Vancouver, in the city and surroundings of Vancouver, to stop that project. So we will see kind of how that manifests, but the kind of struggle against fossil fuel infrastructure, I don't think is going away anytime soon.
Yeah,
it's building, and it's
growing,
and it's taking inspiration. I think the folks at Standing Rock took inspiration from Keystone XL, and on it goes.
And on it goes. Well, thank you for joining me. It sounds like we have somebody else who wants to come in and get in on this broadcast. But
we better let him in.
We better let him in. So thanks.
All right. You're welcome.
Let's see who we have next.
Hello.
Who do we have next?
We have 3 grassroots groups from across the region.
Wow.
Come on in, folks. We have Floyd County, Giles County, and Buckingham County will be here momentarily. And I guess we have chairs for everybody.
Oh, good.
All right. So far we have
Floyd County.
Floyd County, and your name?
Jayn Avery.
Jayn Avery from Floyd County, and
Giles County.
And we have Chad Oba from Buckingham County who will be here shortly.
okay.
Rick Shingles.
Rick Shingles from
Giles
County. We have another person coming in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Brought you representatives from the grassroots.
that's wonderful. The grassroots is where it's
My
at.
name is
My name's Kira Young, and you're on The Bridge with Kira, and welcome to the show. We're broadcasting on 3 stations right now around the world and around the country. People who are interested in this fight and want to know how you all got involved. So let's start with Giles County.
We first heard about the pipeline in November of 2014. And so some folks got together and organized Preserve Montgomery County. Floyd County was already organized, and then I left that group and organized Preserve Giles County, and we've been fighting that since then, so it's going on 3 years now. And initially, when you find out what's happening, they want to go across your property. Initially, simply, it's not in my backyard. But as time went on and we learned more about it, these become full-fledged, not only anti-pipeline in general anywhere, but the fuel that they carry, which is the frack gas from the Marcellus. And of course, the larger global issues as well.
Right, of climate change and you know, just the devastation of fracking alone. It's sort of insane that you can do that. Like, you know, I mean, it's insane.
It's money and power.
Yeah,
It's no more complicated than that.
Right. And as I call it, the psychopaths in charge. They make those decisions. And it's not based on you know, anything that we might find sane or normal or reasonable in any way. So earlier in the show, we were talking about how I am getting feedback again, but we were talking about how when we're fighting in the grassroots and we're at the permit level, all these things, we're fighting eminent domain. We get to the point where we're in a court, we've got the truth on our side, we've got the law on our side, we have morality on our side, but yet they still make the decision for these immoral companies.
I think we're learning, though, that often the law is a charade.
Right.
It was written, these powerful corporations and lobbyists have laws that favor them in this conflict. This is a very uneven fight. And it's a rigged game. And so the law in many places sounds like it's on our side, but when you see how it actually plays out, it's really a charade. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because I've been an environmentally conscious person since I was a baby, just aware that we're connected to nature. And then when I studied it in college and recognized how our bigger picture ecosystem affects every living species in some way or another, it made me more sensitive to the potential contaminations of everything. And then living in these mountains, what people don't understand about the geography of these old mountains is that there are ancient fracks in the rocks that cause horizontal openings. We can cover counties and counties all through these mountains that one little contamination in one part can affect a huge land, of people's wells, of the water they're needing to drink to live. And so that vulnerability is something many people don't think about when they just turn on their faucet. But we are all incredibly vulnerable. And the amazing capacity of any kind of oils and petrochemicals to travel through these cracks, and not to mention just over the land, and stay there and not go away, is something that people have been just clueless about. So that lack of understanding is how those places in power take advantage of us humans. And it's just tragic. So one of the things that was the most inspiring about getting involved with fighting this pipeline is it had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with every human right to clean water. And there I was standing next to an old farmer, and we may have been on opposite ends in the political spectrum, but we totally agreed that our right to our clean water was our basic human right. And the farmers especially were just appalled at that, the eminent domain. Wait, this is my land. This is my world. It's been in my family for 5, 6 generations. And so that kind of recognition of our vulnerability to these corporate interests is something that I think is starting to really become more in front of our face. And so it's a very, very important fundamental fight to establish our human right to clean water.
And not be poisoned.
Life.
Yeah, that's
our life.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's also become far more obvious that the game is rigged as well.
Yes.
You know, since Trump came in. So we have a new person who's joining us. And what is your name?
My name is Chad Obo. I'm from Buckingham County, and I'm with Friends of Buckingham. I'm the president and co-founder.
Welcome to the bridge.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming. And you want to tell us what's going on in your county and where you guys are at?
Okay, well, we have a distinction on the pipeline, the ACP, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, because we are being proposed for the compressor station, the only compressor station in the whole entire state of Virginia. Normally, these are 40 to 50 miles apart, but they decided that they would just put a very big one. We're up to 57,000 horsepower. That's 4 big turbine engines, 2 underground storage tanks, 1 above ground, a huge telecommunication tower, right in the midst of our very rural neighborhood, which is actually very densely populated. So it's going to expose a lot of people to noise, light, but worse than that, a lot of emissions, very deadly emissions. So in addition to where 4 major pipelines come together, the Transco going east to west and south and north. So if it blows, we're all gone, all miles and miles around. There's nothing that can be done to put a fire out like that. So that's our major concern. We don't want to see the pipeline anywhere. We don't want to see any more pipelines anywhere. We don't need them. We absolutely don't need them. But we're faced with this compressor station and also concerns for not only the air, but our water, certainly our water, yes.
So earlier in the show, Whitney was saying that that compressor station, it's not even really legal that they would be able to have a compressor station. Do you know any more about that?
There is a SOTA lawsuit right now that Appalachian Mountain Voices.
Appalachian Mountain Advocates.
Yeah.
Our lawyers.
Yes. And they're representing us with the Board of Supervisors. It was an A1 agricultural zone, and in the comprehensive plan, it could only be a public utility, and in fact, ACP is not a public utility. It is a transmission company. So, ultimately, this is probably most of it's going to go to Cove Point. That's why they wanted to locate it there, because it was very good access to the Transco line. And a very poor, impoverished neighborhood with very few people with internet access, about 90% African American. And so we were sitting ducks. We were really sitting ducks for this thing.
Yeah. And that brings me to that idea of these sacrifice zones. So, we see reservations are sacrifice zones, rural areas are sacrifice zones, and now we're getting into more densely populated areas that are sacrifice zones because they want to keep making money. And they're going to squeeze all they can out of the industry.
What makes them a sacrifice zones, the reason why that's such a good word to describe it is because in many of these locations, most of the path for the ACP, Atlantic Coast Pipeline, most of the paths for the Mountain Valley Pipeline that we oppose, there are not even going to be any cutoffs in these gas lines to provide gas to us. They're just going straight through. So they're causing all kinds of consternation, real threats to us. And we get nothing out of it other than a lot of us have gotten sick and ended up in the hospital.
Yeah, don't even get the energy from it. And then, when this conversation about fracking is really important because the cost of fracking is far greater than the energy that we're getting out of it. They're not factoring in the environmental cost. Yeah, and
which the local communities bear.
Right.
That's why we're sacrificing.
The waste of that stuff just never goes.
Right.
It's toxic.
So the fact that we're all afraid of these things exploding, 42-inch high, 1,400 psi. It's a pipe bomb that if it blew up would destroy everything for 3/4 of a mile in each direction. I mean, incinerate it. let alone the damage beyond that point. It scares us who are anywhere near those points because we're all really informed now. We're aware of lots of these pipelines that have blown up. The worst was in San Bruno where 26 homes were destroyed and about double that number were damaged, and I forgot how many people were killed or injured in that. We read those stories, and then the other point that was mentioned was that water. In my county, we all get our water from the aquifer. The farmers get it from the aquifer. The people that live in residential communities get it from the aquifer, and they're going to build a 10 by 10 foot trench through the karst, which will rearrange the karst, rearrange the water flows, even if it doesn't cause turbidity and pollute the water. The one example we have in the county next to us, they had an 8-inch, 10-inch pipeline, but it polluted the water for the public water district for 2 years. You know, how many people want to go through that? And they spend a lot of money to try and get rid of that pollution to meet government standards. So in our case, we're not only worried about the turbidity and the pollution of the water from runoff and all that, we're worried about, since it's all karst, 80% of Giles is karst, that it'll change the water flows that we all sink our wells into, or the springs we get our water from. And the county, it's not a well-to-do county. They can't provide, it's not cost effective even if they have the money. It's a rural county. So there's just, for example, 2 ways in which we are sacrifice zones. And is the county going to get any gas out of this? We don't need it, and we're not going to get it. But it would cost us, what is it, $1.5 million for a cutoff. And our county, our board of supervisors said, we don't want it. There's no place flat enough through these mountains to put any kind of factories. And the Montgomery County's board of supervisors voted against it. Craig County, these are all counties in the way of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. They voted against it. Roanoke County, the major city here. I'm sure you as well.
Yeah.
So our local government's behind us. They feel like they're part of the sacrifice zone too.
Right.
Ours is unfortunately not behind us. We
Wow.
had a very long uphill struggle in Buckingham. And in the public hearings, which were to determine whether or not this compressor station could be in an A1 agricultural zone because they needed a special use permit, 90 people came out and spoke against it. Four spoke for it. And despite this, they passed it. They said, yes, they could do this. So there were deals made with Dominion from the very beginning. They convinced them. They thought this compressor station, they thought they were going to get revenue. They were going to get a tap that you talked about. There's something on the books, but there's a memorandum of understanding that we have had absolutely no ability to get any information on. They say there's a tap that they're going to get. It's been pointed out to them by industry experts that we brought in that if they wanted a tap, there's already existing pipelines. There's the Columbia, there's the Transco. They could get it that way, but they just don't listen. They do not listen, and so we've had a very tough battle in Buckingham.
Do you think the industry is paying them off?
I think that.
Possible?
I think it's quite possible.
Yeah.
Given the attitude of the board members with the public and throughout the hearings, and a prepared statement, and it was obvious it was prepared at the very end of the hearing. They had their minds made up a long time ago.
So the hearing was rigged too. They weren't.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to change anyone's mind.
It was something they had to do, and they went through the motions of doing it.
Electricity in Virginia is a monopoly. It primarily belongs to Dominion Power, right? This is the Dominion pipeline. They give large amounts of money every year to both Democrats and Republicans. They're totally nonpartisan.
Right.
Anybody that's got any clout in our legislator gets money. It's all published in the Richmond Dispatch, so you can see what they get. So are they bought off? Yes, in the legal sense that they get these large campaign contributions. Who knows what else, but that buys them a lot.
Yeah, Oil Change International just came out with named a lot of the different entities that receive money from Dominion. And they've gone up our county. I mean, they've gone to the Chamber of Commerce, they've gone to everyone, everywhere. They've even divided our African American community which normally sticks together.
Mhm.
Normally sticks together because they gave them a huge, there's a Rosencrantz, no, it's not Rosencrantz. The schools that were established in the 40s for African Americans,
Mhm.
there is a former school in Buckingham that was turned into a community center that is primarily where a lot of African Americans have events.
Mhm.
They just made a big contribution to them,
Of course.
you know.
Of course.
So, like I said, it's been a struggle in
Mhm.
Buckingham.
And you mentioned earlier, there's no internet access, there's very
Not
little.
in my neighborhood.
Right.
no.
And
Which
that's
I-
another way that rural America is shafted, is given the shaft. Okay, so we've got to take all this risk for your pipelines. We're a sacrifice zone, and you won't even build us any infrastructure because there's not enough of us for you guys to make enough money to make it work.
We're actually losing money on our schools. Rural schools in Virginia are losing money and having to shut down entire schools. It's a real problem.
Well, that's happening like in Floyd, the value of the land would just go down so much because of that. And the other thing that came up that convinced the local farmer that otherwise wasn't that concerned about pipe leaks or anything, because they just thought that was all, fake news or something. When they learned that they would lose a certain amount of their land where the pipe would go through, and they would be continually spraying it with herbicide to prevent any growth of trees and bushes around that area, because they wanted to prevent the roots from getting it, whatever. It would wipe out their corn crops. And they would literally have to build a bridge over the pipe in order to get from one field to the next. So the pragmatics of it is what really hit them. It was like all of a sudden they just couldn't
to pay taxes on that.
yeah, on that land, and they couldn't grow the corn for their beef, and that was their livelihood. And it's like, wait a minute, what? And so there was so much more to it than simply invading the land. It was ruining their whole lives in so many ways. And again, in that case, it wasn't about the possible leaks. It was simply about the pragmatics of building pipelines
Right.
through their land.
Right.
And that's something that all farmers can do.
Right. Yeah. Also in rural areas.
We're doing pretty good here. Do we have somebody else that wanted to get
We have a lawyer and a veteran.
a lawyer and a veteran involved?
We can just bring in another chair and they can just join the
Yes.
conversation. Would
Sure
that be
thing.
good?
Sure thing. Come on in.
Okay, come on in, there's an extra chair, and as soon as Adam shows back up, I will,
Yes,
Invite you.
so we're live. We got another guest coming in. Hank, welcome to the bridge.
Thank you.
Tell us who you are and what your place is.
Oh, that's great. Let me finish throwing the stick over the side and seeing if it goes to the other side and comes out. Hey, yes, so I was born, given Henry Evans Howell III in Norfolk, Virginia, the same city my father, who was junior, was born in. And so they called me Boy for 3 years, and then they came up with Hank. But now I say Henry Howell, which is my nom de guerre, which is when I have to do combat in the General Assembly or in courts. I will use my nom de guerre. But generally, Hank, I'll think of Hank Williams, Hank Aaron. I'm going to roll with that.
Hank is good.
All right, so I'm an eminent domain attorney. I got started 13 years representing property owners on pipeline cases in federal court in Danville, Roanoke, Charlottesville, Harrisonburg. But the main thing was down the Patriot Line to Power. That was in federal court. That was 90 miles. These projects are huge. But it's hand-to-hand combat all along the way. Wherever you can get some victory, say, for example, if we can have the survey law ruled unconstitutional or not unconstitutional, but doesn't apply to foreign corporations such as MVP and ACP, EQT, and Dominion Resources. That sort of power is limited to public service corporations under Article 9, Section 5 of our Virginia Constitution that creates a state corporation commission that regulates all public service corporations. So the only way for the law to grant survey rights to foreign public service corporations is that, they'd have to amend the Constitution, and it can only go to Virginia Public Service Corporation. So it's up on appeal. Hazel Palmer has that issue, some cases out in Nelson County. So why do we do that? Because we know we're right, number one, that a foreign corporation like these entities should not have the power of eminent domain in our state, which this survey entry law and taking samples and everything is eminent domain, because it's not police power, and that's the only two powers we, the people, have given to our government that we can take back any time, by the way. And it's our obligation for us and our posterity to take it back if it's being abused. So this eminent domain power is ours. And whether you have property that's being taken or not, as citizens with the power of eminent domain under we the people, or the Virginia Constitution that says all power is vested in the people and therefore derived from the people, well, it's our responsibility to make sure it's not abused by forces, corporate forces, or governmental forces. The struggle is hard, but the Constitution is on your side. And the Constitution is very interesting, and I'll end with this. If you have faith in the Constitution and you believe in it, it's a symbiotic relationship. The Constitution becomes empowered, and you as an individual in the United States becomes empowered by that faith. And it only grows. But you got to have some faith, and you got to start talking the talk and walking the walk. We the people, we got the power. We have an obligation to change things. If they ain't going right, if it ain't what we dreamed and our ancestors dreamed as to how governmental power should be used, which limits our liberty, takes our property, which we use to create in our own unique ways, and run something through our land without recognizing the sacredness of it, purely for profit, and afraid to look at it, the individual, the human being. They're afraid because if they truly do, I don't think they could hold a job long. So part of the job is ignoring and not seeing individuals. All we can do is keep standing up, calling out.
It's my understanding that eminent domain attorneys usually are on the side of, or usually work for the corporations rather than the people. So it's my understanding that you're kind of a limited resource.
I exclusively work for property owners. There's some around. There's some that go both for the government and utilities, and in some cases, individuals. It's rare. Mm-hmm. Most every side picks one way or another, because when you're applying the Constitution as to who's got the power to take property, okay, it's hard the way that corporations push the envelope to take as much as they can and use governmental power to take as much as they can. With that as what we are confronting, then we've got to, at every place where we just take a nick at it. Now, we proved the survey law, for example, for property owners, of course, there are probably 10 or so, a dozen in the state of people that exclusively represent property owners, but you can't be both sides on the Constitution. One, an expansive reading to give corporations as much power to take property for profit, versus the narrowest possible reason, because we see the hurt to the individuals we see is being taken just for profits, and it ain't worth it. What it does to people. I've seen grown men cry with how they're treated during the project, and their families treated, and their livestock treated. Cry. Mm-hmm. And these are men who, in my history, and the women in those settings, longtime family farms that were used to figuring out a way with their faith, with their hard work, with their family. And then And then to be completely disempowered by a federal judge who sends marshals saying, you better let these people come on as long as they want. And a guy can cry over that, experiencing it, and remembering the trauma of that, and seeing what happens. I mean, they have the wife try to get out of the driveway in an emergency setting to get a child, and the contractors wouldn't move the equipment to let her get out. And there was nothing that man could do. That's an account I heard that provoked tears.
Yeah. Yeah, it's complete. Okay. It's a complete lack of respect for that which is sacred.
And there's so much anticipatory stress too.
There you go.
Not only when it's happening, but so many of my neighbors are calling me and they are crying. You know, what is my life going to be like? I know a woman whose property is 500 feet from the compressor station land where they want to put the compressor station. This woman, there is no easement. That she's going to get nothing but noise, bad. Her whole life will be disrupted. Her whole life. So there's so many people that are experiencing this stress in such a big way right now. It's the club none of us wanted to join.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is to let people who do not see it, see it. The people who all want free economic development and cheap energy and is not having their property taken and they're getting the benefits. They need to look at how it's affecting the people up the line and hurting them hard.
It isn't any longer an issue of energy versus the environment. They're always treated as their opposites. We've hired a lot of researchers, and we know that the amount of gas, we already have sufficient pipelines in the ground and ways to provide electricity in Virginia with gas. But the market is changing dramatically in the space of 2 years. So now that there are places in the United States, like the Plain States, where wind electricity is selling for a lot cheaper than any fossil fuel. And in the southwestern part of the United States, solar. And there are European countries like the Irish, the Germans, the Netherlands, where they already are close to 50% alternative energy. So this whole thing about its energy versus the environment, it might have applied 2 years ago, it might have applied 5 years ago. The technology in the market's changing very rapidly, and I don't like it even framed that way. What we need to do is change the energy portfolio for Virginia to encourage more renewables quicker, like other states like Maryland, North Dakota, North Carolina both have much more renewable energy in their portfolios than we do. So politics is tied up here too. Dominion controls any legislation that goes to the state of Virginia. Dominion wrote Virginia's energy portfolio and the Clean Power Plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're always projecting as though the grassroots and those of us who are resisting these pipelines coming in are politicizing it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you actually politicized it.
It's selfish.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be poisoned, you selfish person.
The bridge to the future is a broken bridge. It's a broken bridge to more fossil fuels proliferation, and we don't need to do that.
We're making new bridges.
We're making new bridges.
We're making better
Absolutely.
bridges. With Kira.
So we have a new friend joining us, the conversation. Welcome to the bridge.
Hello, my name's Adam Fishback. I'm with the Veteran Service Corps. The VSC is currently the last encampment up in North Dakota, where we established an encampment that is basically impenetrable by the police, as well as set up for long-term growth. A lot of what my experience is and what I'm doing in Virginia is actually to bring the experience from North Dakota to Virginia. First and foremost, is our main priority is to stop the pipelines where they're at in the approval stage and get them declined. In the event that they do get approved, we're here for the long haul, and we're going to help out landowners who are being harassed right now by the pipelines, as well as others who are just concerned about the environment and personal property rights that are being violated, and set them up with encampments that are, we can hope, to skip most of the lessons that had to be learned in North Dakota and move directly to long-term encampments that are not going to be pushed around by paramilitary forces.
I love that. Yeah. So let's go a little bit more into the paramilitary forces, because we've become intimately aware at how our police forces are being turned militarily against the people who are resisting this fascist pipeline situation. So do you think something like that could ever happen in Virginia, now that the precedent is set for it too, and we're anti-insurgents rather than, just people who don't want a pipeline in our sacred mountains? And
for the most part, I would hope not. North Dakota, the police department was weak, and I would hope that our police department in Virginia is strong, and we have strong police officers that would look more importantly at the rights of their citizens versus a weak government that would allow them to actually do it. We should be looking at our police officers and making sure that they are strong and they have what they need to protect our citizens, rather than having a paramilitary force come in and essentially take over, where they're not allowed to voice concerns anymore. Okay, what are we doing? Is this correct? They should be able to say, no, this is not correct. What you are doing is wrong. We need to protect our citizens more than anything. So I think that should be our main goal, is making the police force strong.
Yes. I don't think there may have been miscommunications. You guys are nonviolent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's important to make. They're not a paramilitary force. They put their bodies on the line between the citizens and the community, and the pipeline paramilitary.
Yeah.
Yes, right. So you're not the tank drivers. You're
No.
trying to keep the tanks out of Virginia.
Yes.
Right.
Fortunately, veterans are in kind of a good standing in Virginia, and a lot of what we can do is, if I can take a punch for a citizen of Virginia, that's better than them taking a punch. I'm used to it. I signed up for it. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. So if I can do it and they don't have to, that should be the ultimate goal.
And really, that's what most of our veterans actually thought they signed up for when they went to war, was that they were fighting a war for the people. And maybe I think a lot of our veterans found out in the process that that's actually not the situation that they ended up in. And so what you're doing is I've put it like this. The psychopaths in charge, they pimp out the warrior spirit and use it for their own profit and gain. And so what you're doing is you're taking that back, and you're taking that warrior spirit back and using it really for the people, to really defend the people. So I really like this idea very much.
The military in general, when you initially sign up to join the military, you speak the oath of commission and the oath of enlistment, which is specifically supposed to be, and the first lines of both are, I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Now that's kind of our slogan that it's become, but I think it's incredibly important to look at, because you do get veterans who live and breathe it when they're in the military, and then when they separate from the military, because they may not agree with exactly what they're doing while they're there with the orders that they have to follow, they still want to live and breathe that same spirit. So, and that's how the Veteran Service Corps was created, was you still have these people that want to protect the citizens and protect Americans in general and their constitutional rights. So you do get those people that want that experience, and that's how they end up joining our organization.
That's great. How do people get in touch with you that want to join? There's so many veterans out there.
Absolutely. The Virginia chapter, you can go online to Facebook and Veterans Service Corps Virginia. Our national chapter is just Veterans Service Corps. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, you can find you no problem.
Absolutely.
And so how many members do you have in Virginia? Do you know?
Right now, we're actually working with different organizations. On Facebook, we've got 40 members, 3 that are very active, want to go out there and train landowners, want to go out there and bring the experiences that they learned in North Dakota here. Mm-hmm. The national chapter, 10,000 people responded in North Dakota. So it's hard to gauge how many people are active versus how many people will respond if need be, if the ACP and MVP get approved.
I would have to say that probably about 60 to 70% of the people that I know under 30 are veterans. And I'm 48. I don't remember a time that we've ever not been at war. It's sort of like been pretty constant.
Definitely my age group.
Yeah, yes.
I think I was in 4th grade on 9/11. I may be wrong on that one, I'm going off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't think that my generation knows anything of their adult lives, especially, but anything of their childhood that wasn't at a time of war, where we're essentially immune to considering it even war. It's just regular America.
Right.
So, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the bombs aren't dropping here too, you know.
It doesn't remind people of it. I think in World War II, what pulled a lot of people out of it was that you had an enemy that was capable of actually coming to America. We have terrorist incidents, absolutely. They're definitely a threat. But we don't consider that war. We consider that daily life, or we don't look at it as having someone who is consistently there who may harm us. It's just our daily lives. To have terrorist incidents, school shootings have become a thing of commonplace rather than something that should be abhorred. And it's not good, obviously, and it's something that we as a people need to fix. And we need to set that standard that we will not allow that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for what you're doing. We have about 6 more minutes. Does anybody want to get in anything really important any important points that you missed?
I'll pick up after.
Okay.
Yes. So we're not the only communities that are harassed by this. There's communities all around the Marcellus. There's pipelines going on, and almost like a clock. It's kind of like an octopus. I think Pennsylvania has 12 of these lines. We've got 2 going through here, and they're going through Michigan. They're going in every which direction. And it's really important for America to know what's going on here. By the way, it already happened pretty much to the west, because this whole movement of frac gas moving from the west to the east began moving 10 years ago. There are communities like ours all over this eastern part of the United States that are fighting these battles to preserve their communities. And we're just one microcosm of it. 2 examples from the ACP and MVP. And so this is truly a national problem. It's not something that's happening to people in this county or that county. It's happening all over. You just happen to be interviewing people from 2 of the pipelines. It should be a national issue. Thanks to the vets for pointing this out. It's not just Standing Rock or here. And so it's got to become a national issue in these elections. And in fact, the Virginia election, 2017, is an opportunity to make it a statewide election. And then through that, of course, the possibility of a national election. But, the other one is New Jersey. I don't know if New Jersey has any pipelines, but states on either side, New York and Pennsylvania do. So that's the plea. This is not something to be aloof to, or isn't that an interesting story? This is a threat to people all over this part of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the table now, so now's the time to really push it.
How much time?
We have got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, I need to make this point. Based on the experience with Columbia Gas and Duke Power, MVP and ACP will go into federal court under the Natural Gas Act. The owner doesn't have the option to stay in state court. The federal law needs to be amended so the owner does have the right to stay in state court. But when they file in federal court, they will ask for a preliminary injunction from a federal judge enjoining the owners from preventing the pipeline company from constructing the approved pipeline project under the certificate. Now, once that order is entered, down the road there will be a just compensation trial. The pipeline company will put a certain amount of money in court that the owner could receive before the just compensation trial. And then there's a just compensation trial, say, a year out. But the preliminary injunctions will happen fast. And the people who enforce those injunctions of federal judges are U.S. Marshals. So that's what the owners are looking at. It's no paramilitary, anything else. It's just U.S. Marshals enforcing an order of a federal judge. For what it's worth, I hope it's helpful.
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Au revoir.
We have three more minutes left.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you? I'm Jam.
Jam, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Welcome to Bridge, Kira.
Nice to meet you.
And it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You guys.
You work with again?
I'm with Brettle.
Brettle.
Environmental Defense.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you guys are kind of on the same team.
We are.
Nice.
Yeah. So we actually we're just finishing up a radio show here. We have only 2 minutes, so
Are we live?
we are live.
Hey everyone. My name is Jamshid Bakhtiari for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. Most people call me Jam.
This is Michael James-Deramo. I work for Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League.
And you did a fantastic training last week, and that's how I'm here today. Because I went to the training and said, you gotta go. So that's why I'm here. And I think what's going on here is great. I love the energy here. There's a lot more, there's a lot of young people. There's a lot of people of all ages. A lot of diversity.
Full slice of the Virginia pie here today. It's not just the whipped cream. It's not just the crust. All of Virginia's here in one slice.
That's right. All of Virginia's here. That's so true.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also here representing the Virginia Student Environmental Coalition, which is a coalition of students across the state, mostly from Blacksburg, Fredericksburg, Richmond, and Charlottesville. But students at different universities or students of the world, but young people in general, who are organizing against these pipelines, as well as just for their futures and their coasts and the communities that they work alongside of.
Very inspiring group of students, I would say. They're definitely kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of political activity that the nonprofits are always trying to catch up to.
Right.
So my hat's off to VSEC.
Me too. I'm really excited. I didn't realize that we were so organized in Virginia, and my eyes are open now, and I'm right on in there with y'all. So I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah. Do we have questions coming in online, or is?
Well, if I was on my laptop, which pooped out on me, we'd be able to do that. But let's see if we have anything. We are live in Ireland, live all over the place. But now we're about to go.
Okay, how much longer do we have?
No time whatsoever. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone. If you want to get involved, go to ChesapeakeClimate.org.
Peace out.